Hi, I'm Mark Villasana, owner of Northwest Insurance Agency and proud SMU alumni. Insurance rates right now are awful. You know it and I know it. But give me a call and let's take a look at your current policy and see if there's anywhere I can save you some money. My phone number is 214-352-5656, or you can email me at markv@nwagencies.com, or just give me a call to talk SMU athletics. Pony up.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast presented by Northwest Insurance Agency. Happy to have you guys along for this Friday edition. Hope it helps you get through the weekend. Going to hit on a bunch of things. SMU's ACC Tournament run comes to an end against Clemson. Controversial call there that we'll talk about. And we'll also talk about SMU getting a commitment from the transfer portal already, mid-March. How about that? SMU gets that done. And also some spring football storylines to talk about, as well as just a little bit of recruiting buzz. We'll kind of wrap it all together here as we kick off the weekend. SMU goes on spring break, and they return after that, where we'll be at spring football. So good reminder to jump on theponyexpress.com for just $1 for your first week, and we can discuss all of this. So much to talk about with now SMU turning its attention toward the NIT. And SMU's loss to Clemson did come in dramatic fashion. But before we get to that, do want to remind you guys to go up 75 and check out the Thomas Auto Group in McKinney. They took great care of me, oil change, tire rotation, and also checked out my AC, which has had some issues, and got me in and out before lunch. So Mike Pace took great care of me over there in the service department, and really just looking forward to going back over there whenever I need to get oil change, alignment, tire rotation. The service department's great. And if you go up there and check out their selection of new and pre-owned vehicles, when you mention ontheponyexpress.com, you'll get employee pricing. So support them. Brandon Thomas, they're SMU owned. Appreciate their support. Let's jump into this SMU Clemson game. SMU falls to Clemson 57-54. And let's lead off with the controversial call at the end of the game. I thought it went off Matt Cross. I thought it went off Matt Cross. And at the same time, they called it on the floor SMU ball. And I don't know if it was definitive. And I would hope if you're going to come out of the review and say definitive, of course it's got to be definitive to overturn it. So why do you have to add that qualifier? But that's a different discussion. That's like saying honestly before you say something, and it's just kind of weirdly reminding people that you're being honest when you'd hope that they're being honest. Anyway, I thought it went off his arm. I thought his fingers kind of bent back a little bit. And that was, shown on replay, but you don't know what's behind the ball. You don't know the different angles. You don't know as much as you need to know to definitively overturn that call. So should have stood, in my opinion, but I also kind of thought it went off Matt Cross too. So at the end of the day, though, SMU lost that game before that controversial possession call. And, I didn't love the play for Chuck Harris. I did not mind Chuck Harris getting that look at all. He hadn't had a good night shooting the basketball at all, but he's a veteran. He's a good three-point shooter. I didn't think the look was that bad as far as, contested. Like Chuck's made shots like that before. And this one just came down short, and SMU wasn't able to corral it, and there you go, and that's the ball game. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more action, though. I would have liked to have gotten it to Matt Cross and found a way for maybe him to just go up for a hook shot and try to draw a foul and make it and do the three-point play the old-fashioned way. Now, the way the refs were at times, I don't know if he would have gotten a call because he didn't get one earlier, which ended up being critical in the grand scheme of things as he picked up that fourth foul and had to sit for a while. I think he came back in right either before or after the under four, but Clemson was able to kind of keep pace. But where SMU lost that game is they didn't score a single basket in the last 6:14 of the game. You can't lose You can't do that in big conference tournaments. You can't do that against good teams. And we've seen SMU's offense just kind of dry up against good teams. And that's why they are going to the NIT. They did not capitalize on opportunities to get quad one wins. They did not capitalize on opportunities to beat good teams. Look at that loss to North Carolina earlier this year. If SMU would have been playing how they were kind of a couple of weeks after that, who knows? Maybe that loss or maybe that win, if they could have gotten a win, maybe that win kind of carries them and they could have found a way to build some momentum. But, this was a learning curve for the group and they just didn't get it done this year against good opponents. So they're likely to be a 1 seed in the NIT. They're likely to host home games in Moody Coliseum. That would be Tuesday and Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday for the NIT start the first round. So SMU fans, you're going to get one more chance. And, with students on spring break, you could end up sitting down low. So that'll be the likely scenario, but we'll find out, I believe, Sunday on the NIT front right after the NCAA tournament field is announced. But for SMU, I mean, you had opportunities. You led by 1 with 15 or with 6 minutes to go. You don't get a single field goal the rest of the way. You go 1 of your last 8. You had a 5-point lead with 15:28 to go. You kind of had Clemson on the ropes a little bit. You came out of halftime just how you would have hoped, really. And I mean, this is a veteran Clemson team. They played together a lot, but SMU is an older team. They're not young by any means, and you got to look in the mirror and sometimes say, what do you want your season to be? And maybe that should have happened a long time ago for this group, a month ago, and said, what do we want this to be? I just think they ended up kind of running out of gas a little bit in the regular season, but you could tell they got a fresh start. They were able to beat Syracuse. They were able to beat to get close, much closer than they did in Moody Coliseum to beating Clemson. I mean, they fought. They worked their tails off, but they weren't able to really get it done overall. So a really disappointing end to the regular season for SMU, or for this ACC tournament for SMU. But I mean, they would have had to have beaten Louisville and then beaten probably Duke to make it into the NCAA tournament. So it's just disappointing. I mean, you have those opportunities throughout the game. When you hold Clemson to 19% from 3-point range, you only make 1 the entire game. That's missing an opportunity. Clemson shot 38% from the field. You shot 40, kind of a wash. You force 16 turnovers. You only get 8 points off those turnovers. You lose the rebounding battle by 1, which isn't bad. But points in the paint, you dominated overall. It wasn't a game that really should have, been this disappointing for SMU. I mean, they should be waking up, getting ready to play Louisville. And sometimes you got to look yourselves in the mirror. So this will be a far different team next year, but there is the NIT. So we'll kind of see who they draw and what that looks like. But a really disappointing end for a group that battled their tails off against a good Clemson team. But, you miss opportunities and that's what you get. So, we will keep you guys in the loop on who SMU faces in the NIT once that's finalized. But make sure that you also talk with our friends at StatusJet. Get the early jump on planning in case SMU does make it up to Indianapolis for the NIT championship, and book a flight with StatusJet. You can get a discount on a round-trip flight by mentioning on theponyexpress.com. David Henry and his team will hook you up. So make sure you chat with them and start the process. There's no membership fee, so you can do it as a one-off with family, friends, take clients, however you want to do it. They'll help you out, and they'll help you secure the trip of a lifetime over there at StatusJet. So appreciate them for supporting On the Pony Express. All right, SMU did land a highly coveted transfer commitment on Thursday, just before the Mustangs tipped off, or a few hours before they tipped off against Clemson, and that is Brown grad transfer Nana Owusu-Anane, who committed to SMU. He told On3 about it. Joe Tipton broke the news, and this is a huge, huge addition for SMU because this is a big guy who can kind of replace Matt Cross from the standpoint of, he's a big body, he's rugged, he's going to be a little bit more of a defensive player into this program, and I think maybe he can play a little bit more of the three. I'm intrigued to see what this means for SMU kind of building the roster, because you're bringing in some bigger players overall in this recruiting class, and you're addressing size on the wings with guys like Jermaine O'Neal Jr. and BJ Davis-Ray as a commitment. And then you have Jaden Toombs and Nigel Walls in the front court. You need a point guard at some point, it seems like, another lead guard style player. But to get Nana on board, beating out, programs like Arizona State, Baylor, Grand Canyon, Kansas State, Louisville, San Diego State, Kansas hosted him on a visit. He's an all Ivy League forward, and he had a lot of programs reaching out to him. So, for SMU to get this type of player for his final season is big. He had a partially torn labrum that sat him out the entire 2024-25 season, and he'll be enrolling this summer and should be good to go for SMU. He averaged 14.7 points, 8.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game last season for Brown. So a really high academic player who's coming in. This is a strong pickup for the start of what could be a, multiple player transfer portal class. Like, I think point guard or lead guard style player. You've got Chuck Harris, who's out the door. You've got Tibet Gorner out the door, Cario Oquendo out the door. So you need to probably add 2 guards. You've got Nana. I could see them adding another big and kind of letting the chips fall. And in today's day and age of transfer portal and all of these changes, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we see some more departures. So a good first start to the transfer portal for SMU, and they'll be looking for more as that transfer portal window opens for basketball just in a week or so. It opens March 24th through April 22nd. I still think that's so long. Like, if you don't know by now, if you want to enter the portal, goodness gracious, like, that thing needs to be, move it back a whole week and do March 31st, to April 14th or something like that. That gets you through the Final Four. It's just so many days of like coaches having to babysit these kids for 30 days basically. But I digress. This is a really nice pickup for SMU on the basketball side of things. Again, they lose Matt Cross after this year. That's kind of your replacement-ish, just a different style of player from Matt, though. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table for SMU. All right, let's transition now into a little bit of football chat, and spring football starting just a little bit over a week away, and I'm excited about it. And another reason why I'm excited is to head over to Rusty Taco, sit on the patio, have some tacos, maybe write a little notebook from what we see at spring practice. Dean and I sitting over there enjoying some tacos, and you should too. And when you go to the Greenville Avenue location right there next to campus, you can get a free order of corn fritters when you mention On the Pony Express. So the code for online or delivery or pickup orders at the Greenville Avenue location only is Pony Express. But if you mention Pony Express at the Rusty Taco Greenville Avenue store, you will get free corn fritters with any purchase. So try them out. They've got the new menu going. We love Rusty Taco. We appreciate all they do for us and students all around SMU as well. This is a great staple for those of you who are Mustangs. So check them out. And the patio is going to be real nice. So we'll be over there soon. Spring football is just over a week away, like I said, and SMU getting some more clarity on what that will look like. You're going to see SMU start spring ball on Tuesday, March 25th. They're going to go a few practices that first week. First couple weeks, they're going to do kind of a normal style spring and get into it. They're going to kind of cool off there from what I understand, kind of like second week of April. And I think this will be a good time for Rhett Lashley and his staff to really have conversations right before the portal. They'll be able to, make sure they know what's coming out of this transfer portal scenario. And, when you have a roster that could still add players, could still lose players, that's an important little piece to know, because SMU will come back from spring break and start spring football. So they're going to work them a couple weeks and then kind of cool off with maybe one practice or so in there, and then ramp it back up after that as they race towards the April 25th final practice, which will be at night. So that'll kind of be the showcase or whatever that looks like. So be on the lookout for more formal news, but that's kind of the breakdown of spring ball. And SMU will then be hitting the recruiting trail after that. The live evaluation period of spring ball. They'll have their big May 2nd recruiting weekend, which we'll have you all covered at ontheponyexpress.com. Again, your first week is just $1. Try us out. You can DM me if you really don't like it and want to get out, but try the message board, get the recruiting scoop. Lots going on. And Dean and I and Jordan Hoffeditz and the whole crew are really finalizing our spring preview. Jordan previewed all the positions. We've got a lot of breakdowns to come on the football side of things. We've had some exclusive conversations with the coaches on the new transfers and early enrollees. So check them out on the site here soon over the next week. So for spring football, I wanted to highlight a couple of my big storylines, and then I'll talk a little bit about special teams. As Hayden Howerton and I are returning with our spring preview position breakdown. So we're going to go position by position, talk about the big storylines for those groups, newcomers, who they lost, returners, all those things, and get you ready. Those start next week, and then they run right up until the day that spring ball starts. So be on the lookout for those. Lots of content coming your way. But for SMU, we didn't really talk about special teams. It's just not either of our bread and butter, but I'll talk about this in just a minute. But I've got a few spring storylines that I want to kind of hit on here. And, the biggest one for me is truthfully the running back room. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see how the recovery is going for Jalen Knighton and Kamar Wheaton and Zane Miners. I want to see how Chris Johnson looks as he gets comfortable in this offense. Is he going to have any hope of being like Brashard Smith? We all know he's got world-class speed. He's got similar production from a limited, sample size like Brashard Smith did when he came to SMU before he turned into what could be a day 2 NFL draft pick, maybe early day 3 NFL draft pick. But when you look at him, he is more straight line. So how does he look running the football and maybe catching the football and doing a bunch of different things compared to how Brashard Smith looked, how Roderick Daniels looked, guys like that who have that versatility to catch and run the ball? That's what I'm watching out of Chris Johnson. Then you have kind of the young buck or the young back, Derek McFall. What does he look like after a full kind of off-season year in the program? He obviously arrived last summer, but now that he's been through it, he's kind of gotten an idea of the culture. He's gotten an idea of the expectations. This is a huge spring for him. I mean, he is really, really good talent-wise. He's got the ability to catch the ball. He's got some speed. He's going to continue to get bigger and add size. Like, it kind of reminds me of Braden West in terms of how he catches the ball. He's not as skinny as Braden was, in my opinion, at least. I'm not sure on the actual weight and how that all worked out, but I really like Derek McFall's versatility. I like what he's going to bring, in my opinion, to this running back room. But you gotta see it take that next step. And that's what I'm watching for with these backs is who, I mean, I don't mean to simplify it like this, but who wants it? Who wants to step up and take it to that next level? And that's what we're going to be watching with Derek McFall. And so that if he develops the way I think he can, and the way Kyle Cooper and Tyler Foster are hoping he can, then you're looking at a very different approach maybe to the transfer portal window, because SMU ended up not adding another back. And I think they wanted to add a second one if they could find the right one. It's not a position that they want to invest, like, go out and get Justice Haynes from Alabama for $800,000 or whatever he got. That's just not something they necessarily want to do. They want to go out and try to find different intriguing backs at this stage and get them to campus. And that's what I think they will look at doing, depending on how the spring goes for some of these backs they have on campus. And if they do have to go that route, then we've known that maybe spring wouldn't have been as good to SMU from the running back perspective as we would have thought. But if not, that's okay. Like, that's fine. If they feel good about it, if they feel things are progressing in the right direction, then that's all we need to know. And I mean, truthfully, that's where SMU really can keep a close eye on this running back position, because it's got to be a position that really emerges as a top position for SMU, because we know the impact that it can have on the offense when you have a guy who can go like Brashard Smith. So we'll be watching that one really closely. And look, we can talk about storylines at every single position. And Hayden Howerton and I did a lot of that as well. So I don't want to, hit you guys over the head with it too much. But the other position on offense that I'm keeping a close eye on is the offensive tackle position. And here's why. We can talk about, and Hayden and I talk about receivers. We'll talk about Kevin Jennings and protecting the football, which you really can't find out too much about until you get to games, truthfully. But we hit on a number of things. But the offensive tackle position, which we talked about too, is so intriguing because you have a highly touted prospect coming in this summer in Jamad Odoms. You have Zion Nelson coming in, and they're hoping that he's healthy. They're hoping that he's ready to go. And if he is, awesome. Then you have returners like Savion Byrd, PJ Williams, Andrew Chamblee. You've got some younger guys and guys who've also been around a little bit too. Could they challenge? Could they take that next step? That is something to keep an eye on. But, man, I want to see, when you look at the edge rushers SMU's added, and I think it's safe to say that the offensive tackle position from a run blocking perspective wasn't that bad last year. I mean, really wasn't. They were able to get theirs against Clemson. They were able to, they passed the ball so much against Penn State in the end. It was kind of tough to see, but they ran the ball well pretty much all year. And even as Brashard Smith was hurt, they had their games against fronts that made it difficult, but they were able to generally get what they wanted. And especially once they made the change. But now you have a group that I think has to take like the next level, but you're also facing a group of pass rushers that is really solid at SMU. And at least athletically, I don't think maybe athletically there's a chance that athletically, it's as good as last year's group of pure pass rushers. So like you lose Jafari Harvey, but you have Turbo back. You have Billy Walton, who looks like $1 million. You have DJ Warner coming in, who's a 4-star prospect. You've got some really nice talent there at that position. And if SMU can develop its offensive tackles and work on pass protection, like I would love to see just like pure one-on-one pass protection work and really kind of hone in on that and try to develop it this spring, because it's something that, you've got to see it a lot, and you have to see it so many times against top level athletes. And I think SMU has enough of those to not simulate Abdul Carter, who, I'm sure, there's guys coming up that are going to be as good as him, but one day, but there's very few that are going to look like him across the country. So you don't have to be Abdul Carter simulating it, but you've got to find, those elite athletes to make it really difficult on the offensive lineman to really test their mettle and develop it. So the offensive tackle position, that's what I'm really watching. And then the defensive tackle spot is another one that I'm intrigued by, and here's why. SMU brought in multiple defensive tackles and won highly contested recruiting battles for them, and they're looking like they've reloaded. You bring in DeMarge Lewis, Jonathan Jefferson's back, Jeffrey Emba comes in, Blake Burris is back, Terry Webb comes in, Johan Sanjo-Njiki is back. You get Eric Taylor in. You've got some size, and you've got some from like what I've seen, some nice looking lean bodies, like Jeffrey Emba, like I think kind of needs to like bulk up a little bit. I really want to see the rotation and what it looks like as a whole, because last year SMU went out and they got Jared Harrison Hunt in the spring. And obviously that turned out to be one of the most important lands that SMU got. But this group that SMU has on the defensive line, like Terry Webb I've talked to a couple of people, they really think he's a really good player. He could kind of have a rise like a Tank Booker, but think G5 kind of coming up. He's not as big as Tank, don't get me wrong. But you've got DeMarge Lewis, who's been hurt from time to time throughout his career. You've got Eric Taylor, who hasn't played in a minute. And then you have Jonathan Jefferson, who you really like. It just seems like they might need one more piece there, maybe two. I mean, I'm just being truthful there. Kevin Allen, he's got to take that next step if he wants to do it. He's going to be a redshirt sophomore this coming year, so it's time. And truthfully, I just think it wouldn't shock me if you see them go after another one. So you've got Isaiah Smith, Turbo. You got Cam Robertson, Trey Wilson, Billy Walton, DJ Warner. I like that group out on the edges. David Abiara, if you can get something out of him, great. And I like the defensive tackles. And most of them were highly contested. Like SMU beat out Auburn for Emba. They beat out South Carolina for Terry Webb. Eric Taylor, what is a former SEC defensive lineman. DeMarge Lewis, SMU beat out. He visited USC, I think A&M. So like highly contested recruiting battles. I want to see those guys, somebody emerge. Like you could see Elijah Roberts kind of had it going into the AAC, and then the next year you could see he was going to be one of the best players. You actually saw Tank Booker control the line of scrimmage and really kind of find himself early on. And it was just kind of a matter of, okay, as long as you keep him healthy and things kind of come together on the field. But he had all of that. Jonathan Jefferson, strong as an ox. Like you need to see some of those flashes from that group right away in spring ball, especially once they get the pads on. So I'm watching that group really closely. And then I want to see the nickel spot. Nickel is a really, really important position in this defense. If you get somebody who can cover, play in the box, tackle, like CJ Sanders did, that is so helpful to these safeties. I think Ahmad Moses could play a little bit of it. Lamadrick Spencer could play a little bit of it. Who else helps? Who else makes plays at that position is one of the biggest storylines to keep an eye on this spring for the Mustangs. Before we wrap up here, do want to chime in on special teams because Hayden and I didn't necessarily talk about it, but Colin Rogers returns. He was one of the best kickers in the country last year, really became a weapon for SMU, and he's just going to look to be a little bit more consistent in what it'll be. It's crazy how time flies, but what'll be his last year at SMU next year. He set the program record for most made field goals in a single season, making 24 of 33 attempts, hit a career-long 55-yarder against Louisville on October 5th. That's the third longest field goal in school history. 7 field goals from 50-plus yards. He's got a little bit of that swag and, he talks a little shit and all of that, which is awesome. You could kind of tell he's getting more confident. This season is going to be a huge chance for him to really he could end up being drafted. Truthfully, if he keeps things going in the right direction. Isaac Pearson and Jackson Waller are both back at punter, and SMU's 2025 roster is set in that regard. So you've got two punters that are probably going to battle it out and see what comes from that. And I think it's a good time for SMU to do that. That's an area that I think they could get some improvement and all of those things. So we'll be keeping an eye on the punter position, see if there's a true battle there and kind of what comes from that. And Isaac Pearson, at the very least, back as the holder. And I will say Gabriel Lozano did kick off some. And this says the 2024 roster. So I don't know. Maybe it says 2025. I'm not sure if they've switched it over, but Gabe Lozano, 3 seasons in Texas. So Gabe Lozano might be back, might not be, but I'll keep an eye on that as we get through spring. But Yeah. As far as long snapper, SMU did bring in a new one, and that is Morgan Tribbett, who transferred in from Colorado State to SMU, and had a good start to his career over there. For Colorado State. So he comes in as a new long snapper and replaces Will Benton, who departs after a few years of being the long snapper. So Morgan Tribbett did he walked on, he redshirted in 2023, and then in 2024, looks like he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games for Colorado State. Now, the biggest question you could argue is who takes over at kick returner and who takes over at punt returner. At punt returner, this one's going to be really interesting. I could see a guy like Randy Reese doing it. I could see a guy like Dalen Singleton doing it. SMU's seeing a little bit of a youth movement here at the wide receiver position. And another option at kick returner is Derek McFall or Chris Johnson Jr. I think SMU likes the running back style player being back there because they've got a little bit more they're a little bit more used to setting up blocks and doing all those things. So we'll keep an eye on how all that plays out as well. But before we kind of wrap up with a couple of quick recruiting notes, do want to remind you guys to check out myperfectfranchise.net. I was talking with Andy Ludicky just the other week about the franchise trends and how he can help you pick the franchise that works for your family's time, money commitments, and whatever your ultimate goal is. So give him a call, 404-973-9901, or email him, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. He will help you get into the franchise business, and if he does get you into the franchise business, he will make a donation back to SMU's NIL Collective. So check him out. Just chat with him. His services are free. We wrap up here with what will be a interesting start to the recruiting weekend as SMU is lucky enough to be in Dallas, where OT7, a huge 7-on-7 tournament, is in town, and the Mustangs are going to get to host some top targets because of it. And a couple of them, we'll have the full list at ontheponyexpress.com. Chris Stewart, 4-star wide receiver, committed to Texas, who is brothers with Carter Stewart, who is an uncommitted defensive back prospect who is blowing up with offers like Oklahoma, Arizona State, Michigan State, and others. Both of them are expected to swing through campus to see the program, and they do have official visits set for later this year. So a good start to the recruiting weekend. This is where the staff, kind of has to, it's a tough part. You got to stick around and hang out a little bit because you have 4 straight weekends of the top prospects in the country visiting Dallas for the OT7 7-on-7 tournament weekend. So huge chance for SMU to make some impressions on some national names and get a big-time quarterback back on campus as well. They're going to host Malachi Ziegler, 4-star quarterback out of Benton, Louisiana. He's been on campus. He was on campus, I believe, for the Cal game, closing out the regular season. And he makes his return to the Hilltop as well with his 7-on-7 team Flow, which is loaded with different prospects from really mostly around Louisiana, a little bit of Mississippi and Texas, kind of sprinkled in there from different states, but a really talented quarterback who's been to SMU before. De'Aaron King's done a really nice job with him. So again, if you want the full breakdown on Donovan McNabb Jr. is on the list. Oh, I'm getting old. All right. So if you want the full breakdown of who's hitting campus this coming weekend, make sure you head over to ontheponyexpress.com for more. We're presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Give Mark Villasana a call or email him info@nwagencies.com to discuss your current rates, coverage, or just the Mustangs. He loves doing that. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast, and have a great weekend, everyone. We'll have plenty of coverage on spring football to get you ready as Hayden Howerton and I get going with our spring preview position series. So hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll catch you guys next time on another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.